I'm going to share my screen. Try to get the same one you're seeing up here. It looks good. And I'm really going to start in this book. And so I'm going to look at the beginning of chapter 3. And I've got it up here online. It's not the same version that you would get if you bought the online, because I think they just give you a PDF. But looking at chapter 3, we're talking about some core C# constructs. So in this textbook, they're going to show us some really simple things. They're going to jump ahead a little bit, give you kind of a taste of some things that are coming, back up, all that kind of stuff. You don't need your book right now to do this because you can just follow along. I just wanted to show you where we'll be in it if you have it. So the first thing I want to do is open Visual Studio. Make sure you've got that Zoom session going so you can see what's going on. And you guys might want to, as like these guys that are in the front, there's an extra computer beside each one. Be a hog, you know, take the second computer, run your Zoom session on it. Use that computer for you. However you want to do it, that's fine. We have some open space. So we don't have enough room for everybody to have 2 monitors or 2 computers that close.
I just need a question. How do we get to our group notes then?
Good question.
Sorry.
No, I wanted to review that. To get to your group notes, and we're going to meet with our study group a little bit later. To get to your group notes in Canvas, go to People and CIS150 Study Group. And then when you find your study group,
the one we're in will not have a lock on it.
Right, the one you're in. Click Visit Group Homepage. Then click on Collaborations.
There you go. Thank you.
Sure. Has everybody found it? Now, I know last week, when it's the first week, you're hearing a million things and there's so much going on. Some people this morning were excited, again, when I mentioned, you know, these group notes, the reason I want to do this is so that you can use these notes as a resource on your Unity studios. So I hope that'll really encourage you to kind of work with your group and make the best notes that you can, because as CIS people, it's just so important to be able to summarize the information that you get given in a note format that you can look at later. The Cisco certification that I have, I never would have been able to pass that certification test if I didn't have notes. If I would have had to refer back to the original content, not enough time. Okay, so I've got Visual Studio open. And last week, we did our Hello World project, and we saw right away that we have a bunch of curly braces when we're working with C#. I want to create another new project today, and this one is going to be the first chapter 3 project. So what could I do to create a new project? There's so many different things I could do.
Click on File and then New.
File, New project. Perfect. Any others?
Could you go straight to that Create New Project under the New Project
setting? We could down here. Do you see any others? There's so many. I think somebody showed me one this morning. I never really realized this icon up here on your toolbar is New Project. On your project menu, no, it's not there, of course. Project, New Project, that would just be good. But lots and lots of ways. So all of them are valid. They're all perfectly fine. You can use any of those ways that you like. I usually use File, New Project, because I'm usually on a big screen, and so I use those things that are more obvious to people that are watching. One that they mentioned last time that I would never use just because it's hidden, but it's the fastest, is Control-Shift-N, right? So Control-Shift-N, that would probably be, that keystroke would be the fastest. way to create a new project. I don't use keystrokes like that because I can lose people fast enough. All right, now as I look at my new project screen, first of all, I see that my location is not on my OneDrive anymore. Visual Studio has reset it to the C drive, and I don't want that because I don't want to lose my stuff, and I want to be able to get to it from home. So I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go to my OneDrive. And then I think I have a source folder that I want to use, and I'll select that folder. So it is a lot longer than being on the C drive. And if I was at home, using the C drive is just perfectly fine. Just make sure you're getting a backup of it, getting all that code copied somewhere. Now I want to name my project. I gave myself a nice keyboard here. They have some sort of name here that I'll use so that it's like theirs. So I want to name this Chapter 3. CH3 Simple Program. And I'm going to put 102 on it. Okay. Is everybody here? Almost. What I want to do before we go any further, I'd like to go find a tool so that we can colorize or color code our curly braces.
So what's that?
They'll just be kind of there for now. Okay, so I want to color code these curly braces. On your menus, go to your Tools menu. Now, the first thing under your Tools menu says Get Tools and Features. This will let you get Visual Studio features. So if you're not able to do something and you Google it and it says, oh, you need to install this feature in Visual Studio, you're going to use that first option. And we'll use that before the semester's over. But for today, I want an extension. So I want to go down one to Extensions and Updates. Now, when you look at extensions, it's kind of like an Android app. There are so many of them available. You have to kind of search around and decide what you like and what you want. So you might be able to find some things that you really like that help you with Visual Studio. I want to find this one that does color coding. So if I were to go to search right now, notice I'd only be searching what I have installed. That's what's selected over here on the left. That's not going to help me. I want to search everything that's available online.
You can get SQL certified in this class?
No, in the CIS150 class.
Oh my God.
SQL class.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, this one you're just base knowledge. Okay, so in your search, let's put color coded curly braces. And there's all sorts of them.
Oh.
I'm going to change my search because I'm not seeing the one I want. I'm going to make it say colorized maybe. It might not be showing it to me because I'd already installed it. Colorized brought it up. So notice there's lots of options and lots of things for you to look at. I don't want to jump off and explore any of those others today because all of us are here trying to work together and get some stuff done. But you're welcome to explore any of those at a time. The one that I want to install, just as an example for you, is this Via Sphora. So if you can find that in the search, that's the one we want. And I just know it doesn't cause us any trouble. So once you find it, just click download, and you'll see this message down here. Your changes will be scheduled, and it will actually install when it can. So I'm going to close. And then I want to close Visual Studio to let that installation happen. And I'm going to tell it to go ahead and modify our install. And then this way you'll be able to tell if somebody reloads your machine too, because you'll lose your color-coded curly braces. Takes it a second, and then it's all done. Okay, so if you open Visual Studio now and reopen our new project, it's a little prettier, a little less intimidating, right? Make it nice for you. So now I've got lime green curly braces for my main, and I've got pink curly braces for my class statement, and orange curly braces for my namespace. So some people don't like them. If you don't like them, that's okay. You can uninstall it. I can understand totally. But it should help us keep track of these, because you guys are developers. You're software developers. I don't want these stupid curly braces to get in your way of programming, and you wouldn't believe how they do that to people. When they're just black and just hiding in things and they get in the wrong place, they can really cause some trouble. So let's always check those and make sure that those aren't causing us any issues. All right, so I said we were going to look at this stuff that's in the textbook. It's not super fancy. They want us to do a console.writeLine. We did that last time, so I'm going to put that in. And the message that we're going to output, I'm going to do like 5 asterisks, then my first C# app, and then like 5 more asterisks. So that looks ready to go. Write out that nice message. Now I want to write out another message. Before I do that though, I want to use the console.writeLine command again, but I want to look at these using statements at the top of our code. So up here at the very top, these using statements are specifying class libraries, C# class libraries, that we want copied into our program. So by us typing in that line of code, notice that this top one, using system, became bold or not dim, because it's now being used. So this one line of code we typed uses that system library. All of these others are not being used. They're grayed out. They're kind of dim. So we don't need to have those in our program. They're actually making our program bigger than it needs to be. Not a huge amount, but we can get rid of them. So what I'd like to add instead is a special using clause, and it's using static. And I'm going to say I want to use static system.console. And then when I want to use a console command in my program, because I included the console code in a static manner, it's now part of my program, I can use the console commands without that console keyword. So this next write line, I'm going to say hello world, ! exclamation point. Okay, so a few things about this. First of all, it really cleans up our code, doesn't it? Because instead of us having this console.writeLine, we'll just have WriteLine. So if we were doing a lot of writing out, it would save a lot. Makes things a little bit more precise and specific. In general, when you look at C# code online, you're going to see lots of using statements. You won't see this using static statement very often. That's because it's relatively new. It's just been available the last couple releases of C#. But it makes things a lot easier for us if we use that for things that we're going to use often. So we're going to use that console class library a lot. So we'll use our using static. Now I've got a couple of messages output. What if I do WriteLine like this without any parameters? What will that do? What's my output going to be? Blank line, exactly. And sometimes that's really important for us. We need that. So we can do that pretty easily. Now, let's run it and make sure that's true. We don't know if we can even see that blank line. First of all, we know that if we click start, it's going to flash that console window at us and then close. We know we can press F5, but it'll do the same thing. If we press Control F5, we should be able to see our output messages and have our console screen pause, waiting for us to press a key. So here's my two messages that I wrote out to the console. My first C# app with all the stars around it, and hello world. Everybody's look okay? Got it, got it. All right. Now, I want to make my program pause so that I don't have to press Control F5 to run it. So I'm going to put a read line command in. Last time we used this command, we did console.readline. Again, we don't have to put the console dot because we had that static using clause. So now let's run it. You can use your start button or whatever. And again, our output does show that blank line. You can see where your cursor is. You can tell that it's just hanging, waiting for us to do something. Look good?
Yeah.
Got it, got it. All right, so easy. C#'s not that bad. Now, whenever we're working with our main, by default, it is void. This is our main method. It's like a function or a subroutine or whatever language you learned that subprogram methodology in. Whenever we're working with C#, it's called a method. And a method is a subprogram, something that does something for others. We'll be looking a lot at how we create this method header in the next few weeks, but we want to look at our main. In the REPL, it asks you to kind of memorize that main header, because it's a really important thing. We have to have that right for our program to run. But our book points out some things that are kind of interesting that we can change. First of all, because this word void is here, this means that our main method returns or outputs no data. So we could change that if we wanted to. And we could say, oh, I'm going to return an integer. And then our main method could return some value. We might want to do that if we had some sort of series of commands that were all running together and we were running program A, and if program A completed successfully, we're going to run program B. We want program A to issue some sort of message back if there's a problem. And it could like return -1 if there was a problem, and we would be able to tell that something was wrong. So we can change that void to int, which is an integer in C#. We'll be looking at that in just a minute. But if we do that, then we would have to put in a return statement, like return 0 or something, and that would satisfy that int. Now the next thing in our main header that we'll learn about a lot more later is passing parameters to a method. Well, in our main, we do have parameters. That's what this is. This is saying that we're going to have an array of strings. We're going to call that array args. This is input to our program. So what do you need to know about that right now? You need to know that we could get rid of it.
My return's throwing me a weird error. It says, since program main string return void, a return keyword must not be followed by an object expression.
Oh, exactly. So if we have a return, we have to have int here. So if yours still says void there, and we'll learn a lot more about these in the next few weeks. So looks good. Now, I just wanted to show you that you can get rid of those parameters that are coming into your main. Everything will work fine. Mm-hmm.
I was just curious, why is it the default that in like all these different programming languages it starts with the arguments being an array of strings? Is there like a reason for it?
There is, and it's because the thinking is that you are running this program from the command line, like from a Windows command line or a PowerShell script or something like that. So the thinking is when you execute this program, you could pass in values at that time from that script to say, you know, what the date is or what kind of run it is or, you know, whatever that parameter is. So let's do that. We've got a program that runs for our company, and it's running in some PowerShell script or something. So we want to pass in some command line parameters. I'm going to put, if I can Control Z, I'm going to put that parameter stuff back, and we'll use it. Now, the way we can use it is actually pretty simple, even though it's kind of beyond our knowledge level. Let's go look at our Visual Studio project properties. In your menus, if you look at Project, and on the very bottom, you see our simple program properties. Click on that. Now, your project properties is actually many, many different windows. So over here, all these different tabs will show you different project windows that you can change the settings of. This very first one, we could change our startup from our main method to something else. We can change our output from a console app to Windows app, great things like that. Let's go find our args. Click on your debug. Ah, it shocked me. Probably broke it. It shocked me a lot. Okay, so on your debug tab, you'll see these are statements that we could use for running our program. So right here where it says command line arguments, let's put some stuff in there. Let's see, I think they said they wanted us to send in a parameter that said run in God mode. They wanted it to have another thing like arg1, and we'll do no update. How's that? We just made those up. Those don't matter. Those are just things that we're going to say we're going to pass to our program. So they could mean something, but for us right now, they don't. So if I want to close out of this program properties page because I'm done, I just go up to the tab and close it. My updates will stay. Now I'm going to go to the point in my code right after the read line statement, and I'm going to put in a loop. So this loop might look ugly in C# because we haven't analyzed all of this information yet. So I want you to just type it the same way I have it, and we'll be working on figuring it all out. We're going to start out this loop as a for loop, and it's going to look quite a bit different than your for loops from Python. We're going to say that this for loop is going to be controlled by an integer named I, and I want I to start at 0. I want to run my loop while I is less than my args, my input arguments. dot length, and I'm going to do another semicolon there. And every time I run my loop, I want to add to I. I'm going to get rid of those curly braces because we don't need them. Now, every time we execute our loop, we're going to write out one of our arguments. And I know this looks super ugly. Like I said, just stick with me for a moment. Okay, now if you can get that code in just the same, I know it's really ugly. And C# code starts out with a lot of special characters and can be kind of stressful. But don't worry about it, we're going to get it all figured out. What we're doing here is we're saying we want to read all of the args, all of those command line arguments, and print them out. I put a reline statement so that it would stop executing after that and we could see our output. So we should have 3 command line arguments get printed out here because that's how many I put in Visual Studio. So if you put those same ones in, you should get the same ones printed out. Let's run it and see. First, we get our first couple of messages. We press enter, and then we get all of those arg values output. So everybody gets something out. If you could get all that stuff typed in there, right, to get something output, that's good for next time. See if you can get those square brackets and parentheses and semicolons. So it's kind of showing us some shadows of things that we don't quite understand yet. In summary, guys. All right. Does it run? Can you get it to work? Is it working? No? No?
Mine doesn't like the args. I don't know.
Oh, it's because it's my fault. Because I showed you, look, you don't need these args. And then I said, oh, yeah, let's use them. So put them back in up here.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. Because I said, oh, we're just going to get rid of those. We don't need them. And then I was like, oh, wait, we're going to use them. Doesn't show anything. Oh, I see, because there's no space in between that project property screen. And put spaces between. Wherever you want, I prefer that backslash. And then you should see it. And you can make those corrections.
Oh, it's nice. Checking all those semicolons. We're good. Okay, so we did a loop. See a little bit about how things are working. We can see that
they're going to really push us in this book. First of all, in this right line statement, let's take a look at it. Our right line statement looks a little different than our previous one, and that's because we're printing out data from a variable. So the variable here, our args variable, we didn't say we wanted that variable. Our main did, but we have that variable because our main did. So in this variable, it's an array. In C#, anytime we see square brackets, that indicates we're looking at an array index. So we know that we're looking at a specific entry in the array. Now that's a variable then, and we're using that variable to replace this construct within our string. So notice our output says our string should say arg : and then this curly brace, 0 curly brace. That's a parameter. So it's saying in this string, I've got a parameter. Right here is where I want some data. And the data I want is going to follow this comma. So let's do a little bit of practicing of those kind of right lines. So we're going to go a little ahead and then back up a little bit. The textbook shows you some other great examples and some things that you want to try as you go through reading things. But I'm going to skip up to page 66. So I want to save this project and close it. So I'm going to use my file menu and choose Close Solution. When I'm using Visual Studio, it's actually pretty important to close that whole solution before I create a new project, or I can create a project within that previous solution, which might not be where I want it. Okay, so let's create a new one. New project. Just changing my location. I'll have to ask the help desk about that because I didn't do that last semester. They've changed something. All right, and I want this to be working with some numeric data. So chapter 3, numeric format, and I'm going to put 102 on the end for you guys. Now, so far, everything we're typing should be within our opening and closing curly braces of our main. So don't get outside of those curly braces yet. We're not really ready to travel outside of them. Now I want to fix up our using statements because I'd like to have that using static system console because we are going to be using that console class a lot. I'm going to put a comment in here. We're going to make use of some formatting tags. So the first right line that I want to do is going to be kind of a header. And it's going to say the value 99999, which is 5 nines, in various formats. So let's try the first one. The first one we're going to use is the currency format. So I'm going to type out this string C format and then 0:C within my curly braces. My curly braces are within my double quotes. After my double quotes are closed, I'm going to put comma and 5 nines. I'd like to run this one so that you guys can see what it's going to do, so you get an idea of what we're going to do with the rest of them. So I'm going to go down a couple lines and put in my read key. So now let's run this. And you should see our first message that says that we're going to print this value in various formats, and then our C format. And notice how that C format changes our nines into currency. So we get some nicely formatted currency where we've got a comma every 3 digits, we've got a dollar sign, and we've got 2 decimal places. Okay, so let's try some other number formats. Some things about our textbook I don't care for, and then some things I do like, and I think that's the way with all text. So if we go past those kind of confusing things, we get to some good things. Next, I'm going to do D9 format, and my parameter is going to say 0:D9. Then after my closing double quote, I'm going to have my 5 nines. So in our first example, our last program, we saw that if we do curly brace with a 0 inside of it, that's a parameter. This is still a parameter. We're passing the parameter replacement value here, but we're adding in this formatting specifier, saying that we want to format it as currency or as 9 digits or whatever it is that we want. So let's look at a few more. With numbers, we have so many. I'm going to do F3 format. Now, as we're typing in these parameter numbers, always being 0, if we had another parameter, it would be number 1. So we could go up pretty high on those parameter numbers, but things would get pretty ugly in our code. After F3, let's do N. So as you're typing, notice how Visual Studio is colorizing things, how it's recognizing where things are, and so it'll kind of help you type things properly. Let's do a couple more, and these are going to give us hex format. Their comment says, notice that upper or lower casing for hex determines if letters are upper or lowercase. So for this one, I'm going to use E format. And this is an uppercase E. And print out our 5 nines. And then I'll do the lowercase e format. We don't have a lot of requirements that make you print things out that are hex or binary, but you can. If you've got it, go ahead and try running it and take a look at what your output is like. I like this example because it shows you how you can do all these different number formats. And it really has been something, bless you, that I've seen students struggle with in the past because there weren't any good examples. So this is kind of good. So we see our currency format first. D9 just printed 9 digits, right? And if you notice, it added leading zeros to fill it out to 9. F3 printed a fixed number format with 3 decimal places. And format was number format. So it looks a lot like currency. It has commas and 2 decimal places, but it doesn't have a dollar sign. So that's really the only difference between it and currency. And then we have scientific notation with the uppercase E and the lowercase e. All of those great things that you can try. Any questions? Do you see how that parameter is working? That everything that's within the curly brace in our string is a parameter, and whatever's coming after the comma is being used to fill that in. It's going to be in that spot, in that place in the output message. Bless you. Now we put 9s in here, just all 9s, but we could have variable names here. That would be more common. We just haven't done a lot with variables yet. So, yes. Uh-huh.
It says something wrong, or like X.
Oh, I see it. Let me show everybody. Let's see if everybody can figure it out. Don't watch. Wait, I don't want to move down. I want to move this one. You can't watch me. This is a problem that a lot of people ran into this morning. Okay, it crashed. And if you notice, it's not got one of those nice messages like I was showing you last time. See, if we move our curly brace, it tells us we're missing it. Now it says, this input string was not in correct format. We didn't even have any input. What in the world is it talking about? Do you see it? Because this one will get everybody. It's not nice. Semicolon. And it should be a colon. So right here in this format specifier, that spot right there, if we accidentally get a comma there, which is really easy to do too, or a semicolon there, it just crashes the whole thing. It doesn't say, oh, you didn't have a colon in the right place. It goes nuts. I don't know why. But thank you, because that one will get everybody in the REPL, and we don't want to wait till then when I know what it's doing to us. So the format specifiers are being handled by, you know, a class that doesn't respond well if it's not formatted properly. Can give us a hard time. So what all are our data types and variables? When I'm working with C#, I'm going to come down here after our read key. I declare a variable by specifying its data type. I'm going to use the int data type, and then the variable's name. And I end my line of code with a semicolon. That declares a variable that is an integer data type that's named var name. So the first thing I have to specify when I declare a variable is the data type. So let me find those for you. From our book here on page 68, they list the data types. Let's take a look. There are a lot of them in C#. When you're working with Python, if you have a line of code that says my var equal 70 plus 90, Python looks at that and says, oh, this variable needs to be a number because they're adding 2 numbers to place into this variable. And Python figures out what that data type should be, right? With C#, we need to tell it what that data type is going to be as we declare variables. And this is going to add to our efficiency because our program is not going to have to spend that time, that work to figure out what that data type is. Again, we don't know whether that's going to save enough to be worth it or not, but that's the way it is. So data types. First we have bool. Bool is a Boolean, so it's either true or false. Next, we have the byte class. So I have byte and sbyte. What's the difference? Well, a byte is 8 bits, so I can hold data from 0 to 255 in a byte. An sbyte is 8 bits of data that carries a sign. So since I'm carrying a sign, I can fit smaller values, right? Because I have to have room for that sign. So in an sbyte, I could go from a value of -128 to +127. So that's going to get me the byte characteristics. Now, that's an 8-bit number. A short is a 16-bit number. So you can see our range there is a little bit higher. So we have a short, which is the signed version, and a U short, which is the unsigned. So you can tell the same person didn't come up with all these naming standards, did they? We can't assume that the short will start with an S, and we can't assume that the unsigned will start with a U, whatever. They do what they want. All right, next. 32-bit numbers, int, and unsigned int, or uint. Long are 64-bit numbers. These are pretty big, pretty giant numbers. Unsigned long is ulong. Next, we have the char data type. That's one character of data. That's not numeric. A float is a 32-bit decimal number, so really large. You can see they go to scientific notation with these. These are just very, very big data types. We have string, and a string is going to be an array of chars. And then, probably most important in C#, we have object. And the object data type could be any sort of object that we've created. And we'll find out as we go that that gives us a huge amount of power. So what if we were creating a student data system and we were going to keep track of some student information? What data type would we want to use for the student name? String. That would make sense. What about the year they're going to expected to graduate?
It's probably a U short.
That would work. That seems like a good thing to use. What about a student's GPA?
Maybe an S-byte. Oh, okay, yes, they're probably.
Don't I need a float for a GPA? So come down all of those, and I didn't say that before. All of these are integers. So the int specification here. And then these ones after that char data type are floats. So we would, for their GPA, we would have to use a float would be the smallest. Unless we wanted to carry it some other way, right? We could always do something else. What about sex? What would be a good data type to carry? Char would be the best, wouldn't it? There are also data types available like date time. So if we wanted to keep track of how old a student was, we could say, oh, we'll keep track of their age and we'll use a byte. That would be fine. But in effect, we'll probably keep track of their birth date and calculate their age using a byte data type as we go. So that would probably be something that we'd want to calculate. Okay, so we have a lot of different data types. It gives us a lot of power. There are some different ways to think about things. Remember that if you're working with an easier to approach language, you can maybe get a task accomplished quicker. But if you're working with something that lets you get down in the depths more, you can configure it more and change it and tune it to be exactly how you want a little bit more. So there's good things and bad things to both. All right. Phew. So we're going to look next time at really creating variables, but your REPL for this week does that also. So it should give you some good practice. I'm going to go look at our modules again. Make sure it works for everybody. In your modules section, if you go down to lesson 3, the lesson 3 REPL course, click on it and make sure it lets you get into it. I can fix it if anybody's having any trouble. Yay, REPL. Sometimes as a teacher, you like to just be in the background and listen and hear what people say about things, especially if you've worked hard on them. And with REPL, I hear good things and bad things, but the bottom line is I think everybody knows more when they're doing it, so I think it's a good practice facility. But before we jump into it, we need to rearrange ourselves and get together with our study groups because we haven't had a chance to do that yet. So let me bring those up. I'm going to go to people and your study group again and expand this out. So what I'd like you to do is meet with your study group for about 10 minutes. I'll set the alarm. You're welcome to stay. This morning, everybody just kind of stayed with their study group and worked on the REPL assignment until they were done or ready to go. We're going to start our lab time, so you guys are welcome to take a break first, and then we'll come back and get together with our group. After you've had your 10-minute meeting with your group, if you're worried about the weather, I say you can go on home and work on that REPL. But if you'd rather work on it with the support of your group, then stay here. So I'm going to give you those choices because I know it is getting yucky out there. Let's go broad on first. That class is not working right first. And hang on. The way REPL works, it makes me use all these crazy links, and sometimes it just doesn't update them right in Canvas. Hang on. I'm going to update that link again. Okay, so try clicking on that REPL class again. You should be seeing, if that link is correct, you should be seeing lesson 03 variables SP20. Okay, let's meet with our groups. I know you guys are all on this. Huh?
I think,
Is your group good? Huh?
Group 5 is simple.
Group 5. Group 5.
I'll come. Yeah, we can go back there.
Okay, here's our groups. Find your study group. Talk to them. What I would like, a group leader. A group, what do you want to call this person? The person who says, does everybody have their assignments done? Does
I like the
everybody?
secretary or whatever.
Secretary, yeah, I was thinking of the general pain type person. But we want those two functions assigned. You might want some other functions assigned. Talk about your notes. How much do you want in your notes? Do you want a whole bunch, just a little bit? You know, keep it concise? Have all sorts of stuff?
I wanted to wait till it was a break. So I had a MSU transfer, and I guess we're allowed to join their robotics class.
Oh,
So if you know any CIS students who'd like to do that, he just let me join it.
oh, cool. Can you just take a picture and send me that?
Yeah, because I feel like I've seen that on our chats before of other
Yes.
CIS students wanting to do stuff like this.
Yeah, let me just take a picture.
Okay. But I thought that's a really cool opportunity.
Oh yeah, that's
I know there's a
super
lot of
neat.
us who kind of want to get into that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Does this count as a networking opportunity?
Yes. You darn. That's so cool.
I thought so too.